Sergeant Dick Sullivan, United States Marine Corps, Korea, the Forgotten War. I interviewed Dick the same time I interviewed Bill Mendler in Phoenix, Arizona. I interviewed Dick on Veterans Day in 2006 down in Phoenix, and he told me a great story about his part in Korea. He served at the Chosin Reservoir. He was with G Company or George Company, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, which is part of the 1st Marine Division. He joined the military in 1948, August of 1948, with his brother and his cousin. I think it was August 3rd. And they joined the Marines, and the rest is history, folks. Dick served proudly as a Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine. And like I said, he told me a great story. He was with a machine gun platoon in Korea at the Chosin Reservoir. Now, come on, folks. Doesn't get any better than that. And those of you who don't know your history of the Korean War, you've got to watch these stories. I know a lot of you like Vietnam stories, and I do too. I love them, but the World War II and the Korean stories are just as important. We're losing some of these most of these veterans now. So it's important that we listen to their stories, especially in the day that we're living in, folks. So, but God bless Dick for serving in the Marine Corps. I'm just so thankful for him and his service. I want to also thank Brandon Glidden for his service in the United States Army. Brandon is the sponsor of this story, and he's helped me with many of my Korean War stories. Brandon, I want to look in this camera again, and God bless you, and thank you for helping me to continue with these Korean stories. We've still got some more to do. We'll do one by one until we get them all done. But folks, I have hundreds of stories still in my archives of all Vietnam, Korea, and World War II. And even Iraq and Afghanistan. I want to start getting some of those out too. But Brandon, again, thank you for sponsoring this story, for your service to our country, and for just supporting my work. It's been a big blessing in my life, and you know that, so God bless you. Folks, I'd like you to step forward like Brandon and help sponsor a story. There's information in the video descriptions of all my videos, or donate to my work through the comment section. There's a link you can click on, or on my website, larrycapetto.com. There's a donate link there, and you can watch or listen to some of my Voices of History radio programs. All the stories that you see here on the YouTube channel are aired on my Voices of History radio channel. So if you can't watch a video and you want to hear some of these stories and continue to learn, a lot of people write me that they're learning so much from these stories, and there's a huge educational value to what I'm doing, and I just am so grateful. I thank God that I can serve Him and my country through the lens of that camera and share these stories with all of you now. Such a blessing. Like I said, I have hundreds of stories that are still in my archives. Let's get them all out, folks. So, okay, thank you for watching, listening, subscribing to this channel, sharing these videos. Let's honor Dick Sullivan right now, United States Marine Corps, Korea, and I'll talk to you in my next broadcast. God bless you. Okay, you're with the 1st Marine Division. Give me the whole...
Okay. I joined the Marine Corps in August the 8th, 1948, along with my brother and my cousin. We went to boot camp at San Diego, and from there we went to Guam. We trained on Guam for about 15 months, and it became George Company, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. We returned to the United States after a typhoon, went to Camp Pendleton, and at Camp Pendleton we formed the 1st Marine Division. And in June, I was on leave, and I was called back because of the Korean conflict. And my brother, my cousin, and myself all boarded ship in early July and headed for Japan. Of course, things got really tough in Korea, and the ship was sent on to Korea, and we landed in Busan, Korea on my birthday, 1950, July 31st. We were in combat on the 7th of August, and on the 8th of August, the first, as I recall, those dates, dates could be varied, a couple of days. was the first guy killed was a guy by the name of Sergeant Blackman. He was on Guam with us. And from there, we went to the Pusan perimeter, and after the Pusan perimeter and a lot of combat, we headed around and landed at Walmido. We were the first wave of Walmido. George Company was probably the best trained, now I'm not going to say exclusively George Company, I'm going to say the 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines was the best trained organization that went into Korea. Because all the guys had trained for 15 months on Guam. And we had no replacements when we hit Korea. And I think that after, down in Pusan, we got replacements, a few replacements, because to make up another platoon per company. We hit Walmido, and it was George Company that did the first wave. And as said earlier, they went over the seawall. We didn't. We walked across the aqueduct there, not the aqueduct, but there's a little, a road that goes from one island into the mainland. And so we went across there. After we finished went Incheon, we went over the Han River into Seoul. George Company raised the colors over the palace in Seoul, and there's a picture in one of the papers that the machine gun platoon is what raised it. I wasn't in that picture because I was over in the palace with my buddy looking for something. We found it. We found some more Koreans there, so we finished that. From there, we went down, boarded ships, went around, and landed at Wonsan. From Wonsan, we went up, and George Company, 3rd Battalion was a point. We were at U.S.M.C, and then we'll get into where I was and what we did when the Chinese came into it.
Hey, just kind of walk me a little slow into that, what time of year it was, and then tell me about engaging with the Chinese.
Well, I don't remember the time when we hit the beach. We were on the, let's put it this way, I remember some of this. George Company was put in the 5th Marines were put in reserve at the landing of Wonsan. We got there after Bob Hope. Bob Hope went in and did a show, and we were setting out on the ships. The first time that we hadn't been the first on the line, but we set out there on the ships. After that, we got off the ships, and the dates, I don't remember the dates. I know we got on and we went south on a train and wiped out had engaged some Koreans that were south of Wonsan, and so we could protect our supply lines. And we came back and we went up, we were the rear guard going up to the Chosin. When we got up there to the reservoir, as I recall, the whole regiment didn't go to I want to say the south side of the reservoir, but we went up there and was up there for 4 or 5 days, and we could see the Chinese, or not Chinese, Koreans, but we were pulled back, and the Army went up there, and I can't remember, the name of the guy. He was a colonel. He took maybe a battalion of Army guys up on the south side of the reservoir. We came back, and we went through the 7th Marines and the 1st Marines to U.S.M.C, and we were on the point. And George Company happened to be on the point at U.S.M.C.
Are you a rifleman? Are you in a rifle squad or what?
I was in the machine gun platoon, and machine gun platoons, there's 3 squads, and of the squads, they're attached to the rifle companies. The rifle companies, 1, 2, and 3. But depending on the manpower, we went with the particular platoons. They tried to keep us attached to the same platoons because we knew how to react to the commands of the officers. And but I think we was with 3rd Platoon, and they were, my buddy and I, we just got off of a watch about midnight, 4 to 8, or what was it? 8 to 12 watch. And we had just got off and got in our pup tent, and which, if anybody told you they dug holes up there, they were wrong. They didn't have any holes because it was frozen. And we went to, anyway, we got off watch and we lay down in our pup tent. And before we could get to sleep, some bullets was coming through our pup tent. And I said, I think we better get out of here. We got out. And at that time, the Chinese were coming over the hill, right in front of us. Our position at that time was main line of fire was up on a road to keep any vehicles coming down that road. And so we stayed there on the gun, and other members of our company charged up the hill. The bugles was blowing, and literally went up there and just beat the hell out of them. I mean, they shot them, and there was a lot of some hand-to-hand combat up there. I think two of the guys, one guy got a silver star, one got a bronze star on that little event. We didn't get a lot of medals, but in that case they got him. One guy just got his 3 years ago. And so then we started the trek out of there. It wasn't a trek out of there. It wasn't like getting on the road and walking out. I remember the first hill that we went up to was, I don't know, it was the first hill we went up, and the Chinese were still engaged, and we got up there during the day, but we spent the night up there. And what we did is we sat there all night throwing grenades and taking a shot once in a while, because if you don't do that, the machine gun it's cold anyway, but it'll freeze. And so we'd fire off a couple of rounds, but mostly we threw hand grenades all night long. And the next night, and there's another thing about people believing that we dug foxholes. We didn't. We used enemy dead as parapets. We stacked them up around us, and it was pretty good protection. Then, after that, we went down that hill and went to another hill, went up on top of that as we were withdrawing. I never like to use the word retreat. I think as one of the generals said, we didn't retreat, we just turned around and fought the other way. And of course we had a long way to go. The cold was very bitter. Most of the friends and I all have frostbite. I don't know how anybody got through it without frostbite. I'm 40% disabled because of hands and feet. And the reason I didn't go back into the Colorado area where I was born is because I didn't want to be in the cold, and I didn't. I moved to California, but that's another story. I'll stay with this other one. And after going down there, the number of in the Marine regimental programs, they have the headquarters, they have the weapons companies, they have behind that the 11th Marines at that time, and they expect the rifle companies to protect them on a perimeter basis. Well, when the Chinese broke through the perimeter, which was shallow because it was all hill, there was outposts, and when they came through, they came down them valleys, and those guys in the back that were in their sleeping bags were shot or maimed in some manner, whatever it was, but there was very many of them. I always think that the reason that our company and other companies in the 5th Marines survived is because of their training. They were so well trained that you didn't have to yell at somebody or talk to them. You just knew when an NCO or something would look at you, you'd know that you want to go left or you want to go this way. But I believe that that's the reason. And it was terrible to go through there and see these guys just stacked up and their bodies frozen. And like Marines always do, we gathered up those guys, put them in trucks, and they came out with us, along with our equipment. I think, I can't recall how many people really came out. I visited with it, and I've seen them for the last 50 years, but the total number get away. Some people don't keep in touch. But a large number of our company did get out of that, and all of them damaged in some manner, some worse than others, and we had quite a few killed as well. But statistically, and I've done some look at it, checking the numbers and so on, but I think the percentage of Marines wounded and killed in the Chosin Reservoir from our company far less than it was with others. We were regulars, all of us had joined, all of us had been trained. The worst thing that I could ever find is guys that came in out of the reserves that had no training. It was a bad deal. And we'd tell them, just stay out of the way, stay down, and see if we can't get out of here. And fortunately we did.
The aspects of combat that you experienced, had you been in combat before Korea? I mean, this was it, first time?
Well, the only time, no, there was no combat before that. No combat before we were in Busan, no. We didn't think there was going to be any. I joined the Corps. In fact, my brother and I joined the Corps because we thought there's not going to be any wars. We'll go out there and, have some fun, take a trip across, me more than him. I looked over the hill. I wanted to see what was on the other side of it, but no, we didn't think there was going to be a war. But then when we were called to duty, we were ready to go, and we were invincible. We didn't think we could get hurt. Reason there's no pictures of the 5th Marines, because we never had cameras. And even though they called us Hollywood Marines, we really weren't. And they told us when we left, leave your cameras at home, fellas. We're going over and take care of this job in short order. We'll be back home for Thanksgiving. No, it didn't happen that way, but that's what we were told. So nobody had any cameras. We found somebody. There's a picture I have here that I'm going to give you that was taken at Ham Hung, and somebody else. It was probably somebody that had a camera or had it shipped into him afterwards. But we continued down the line. I remember the nights that we stood on the road. It was only about 12 feet wide. I think it was probably for a cart. And guys froze to death. Now, I know from my training as in a Boy Scouts that one thing, you get stranded out in the cold weather, you don't sleep, and you keep moving. If you go to sleep, you have a good chance of freezing to death. So I spent the evening, the first night, snow was about a foot thick, and it was cold. My God, it was cold. And our equipment, even though I think we had better equipment because we had parkers, and the boots that I've seen a picture you have over here, the Mickey Mouse boots, they were good. They had a thick sole in them. But again, if you was walking down the road and your feet would perspire and you'd get pinned down in a firefight, you were in pretty deep trouble because you couldn't get these socks off to dry them out. And that's where a lot of guys got their feet frozen, because they couldn't get them dried out. And I took every opportunity I could to take my socks off. Even though I did that, I got my bottoms of my feet are all frozen. Have no feeling on them. I can't feel hot heat and I can't feel cold. I'm sure the other guys feel the same way. Same with my hands. If I get in cold weather, they turn white. And so I stay out of cold weather. I don't throw snowballs. And then we continued on down the hill. I became good friends with the then second lieutenants and first lieutenants, and later on in life met up with them and became very good friends.
Did you ever hear anything about the Army being overrun just east of the reservoir before you guys got there? Do you have any reports like that?
That was after we were up there. Was it the east side? I thought it was the north side.
I heard east, but I don't know.
Oh, okay. On a map, east, west, it could have been the east side of the reservoir. We went up there, and the guy's name, I can't think of it, but there's a lot of stories written about him. He was a colonel. I can't remember, but they relieved us on that side of the reservoir. And we turned around. I mentioned that earlier. And yeah, they got hung out. They got cut off and they couldn't get out. And they took a beating. I think only a few dozen finally got out. And we never did go up the outside again. But some people say that we may not have been up there, but I know we were. And we didn't have really any combat. We just went up there because it was part of the route that we were going to go. And we were, I think we were like 9 or 10 miles from the Yalu River.
Were you fighting the North Koreans at all, or just the Chinese?
Where?
In Korea, when you got to Korea,
Oh, no, there was no Chinese in South Korea. And it was just the opposite of the Chosin River. Hot, it was so hot. I got malaria in Korea and South Korea. But no, there was no Korean or no Chinese then.
Well, tell me about the Chinese though at the Chosin Reservoir. What type of soldier were you fighting, and what were they shooting with, and what kind of clothing did they have?
Well, the clothing that we seen on was only dead ones. We didn't have a lot of chatting with them because we didn't want to do that. What we did is if we found them and we saw them, we shot them. And they were wearing mostly cotton. And I'm sure it wasn't down, but it was quilted. But they used heavy socks or little, like we might call as a, let's say a slipper, you know. But they was in bad shape, and they had no communications. Their only communications were bugles, and they were, you know, we had a better shape than them, but they had a lot more of them than us. And that's the way it was. All of them didn't have weapons. When one guy went down, they'd pick up his weapon. And their supply lines were bad. They hadn't eaten. Their eating habits was, they could get by on a lot less than we could because they ate a lot of rice. And they could live off of the land. But there were so many of them that they froze. They had the same weather we did. It wasn't any warmer for them than it was us. It was still 30, 40 below zero.
Well, what was their purpose or their goal? I mean,
their goal?
Well, why were they fighting you guys?
Well, I think it's because of North Korea. We had been beating, and they thought that we were going to come across the Yalu River. There certainly was some of the military people thought that we should go over the Yalu and go into China. And there was others that didn't. In fact, if I recall, a general got fired because he thought differently than the President of the United States. But the Chinese came in to save the communist North Korea. The North Korea were beaten, but they put the masses on it, something that I think everybody in military had talked about before. The masses possibly could overcome the firepower. Well, they didn't. They proved it there, that they couldn't keep up and couldn't outshoot us, but there's a lot of them. I forget, 4 or 5 divisions? You probably heard.
Tell me about some of your friends that were wounded or killed, what you remember. Where were you? Were you there with them, or did you have friends that were killed in Chosin? I mean, what do you remember about that?
Well, it's quite difficult to tell. They're in different locations, and I can remember more about people being killed in Busan, in Seoul, and Incheon than I can at the Chosin Reservoir, because people that were there, the cooks and bakers, moved into your companies no matter what. Everybody became a Marine rifleman to try and get out of there. So a lot of your friends you look for when you get out and you don't find them, but you may not know where and how they were killed. I can't remember of any of the guys in our squad that were killed at the reservoir. I can't remember. I go through my rosters. I got every roster that of every Marine that went into combat in George Company, and I don't see any of them that were killed. at that time. Some were killed. I have one person that was in our squad in Seoul, got the Medal of Honor. And he was shot when he was standing right over me. So.
Well, tell me some of those stories. What happened with him? I mean, where were you at?
Well, we were going up the street in Seoul, and the Koreans had a little machine gun nest set up at the end of the road. It was a kind of a road that went up, and it went in a Y, like a wishbone. And they had a perfect place when they had their little walls, and perfect place for a machine gun nest. And they had some children standing in front of it. So we're walking up the street, and we think everything's going good. And they opened fire on us. And one of the fellows was shot, and he laid in the middle of the street. And PFC Obregon went out in the street, grabbed him while he was firing, got him out of harm's way, and ran back across the street. And when he came back across the street, he got behind the wall where I was at, and I told him, "Stay down." And he stuck his head around the corner. He got one right between the eyes. And that's why he got the Medal of Honor for the in harm. I mean, it was a firefight, and most guys would never have done that. And so that's the story there.
You said there was a lot of fighting in Busan?
Oh, absolutely.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, well, I'll tell you. We went in, and this fellow was standing here a while ago. He said he was with one of the Army divisions, and they could not hold a hill. They did not. They were made up of a group of individuals that were in occupational duty in Japan for General MacArthur. They were cooks, bakers, and I don't know about candlestick makers, but they had not been trained to go into combat. And they didn't want a lot of it. They didn't want any part of it, actually. And we'd take a hill, and as you know, Busan perimeter was just about overrun by the North Koreans. When we got there, I mean, the things were tough. Everybody was backed up. And so we went into one area, and my brother was in the platoon that I mentioned earlier about Sergeant Blackman being killed. They were on an outpost, or they went out on a search and destroy mission, and they kind of got in a pickle, and they got into combat. Even though they were on a little mission there, they got into it, and so we pulled back and went up a hill over the Naktong, pushed them off of there, and that was the high ground, and we got them off the high ground. Well, the Army came along, and they came up the hill and relieved us. We went to another area, and we fought in that area. I can't name the place, but we, as a PFC, I didn't pay a lot of attention to where we was. I just said, "Hey guys, we're packing up." I did the normal thing he does, griped and said that, "What are these guys doing? Hell, I know better than that. We just take this hill, and we're going to go back, and we go down, and we take another hill, and then all of a sudden the order comes back, hey, that hill we took on that tongue has been overrun again. We got to go back and do it again," which we did. And this is what we did. We played and got the name of the fire brigade at the Busan perimeter. Like a fire. You go from this fire to that fire, put it out, get back and go. And then MacArthur ordered the invasion of Incheon. He pulled all of us out, and we got the short straw and hit the beach at Wamido, the first wave. But the fighting in the Busan perimeter was very intense. So you don't hear too much about it. I was in communications with a person in charge of the 50th anniversary of the Korean War in Korea. And he didn't even want to talk about the Busan perimeter. It was more like Incheon and Seoul, in the capital of Seoul, and not too much about the Chosin Reservoir. So it's a severe fighting there, and we lost a lot of troops.
Up in at the Chosin Reservoir, what did you find yourself eating? Did you eat? Did you sleep?
No, I didn't sleep, because I know, like I said earlier, if you go to sleep in 40 below zero, you're going to die. And we had sleeping bags. And I've seen a lot of guys in sleeping bags, they would pull the cover, the little hole that we had, over their face to keep their nose warm. Well, the whole body froze because their perspiration from their body stuck inside it, and it froze. And because they were, you know, it's like going up in the hills in Colorado. If you go up there without the wrong gear, you can freeze to death overnight. And that's the same as it was in Korea. It's about the same parallel, I think. As I remember many years ago, I looked at the parallels, and I think someplace up around the high country in Colorado, Battle Mountain, in those areas, about the same parallel. And it gets cold. Well, that's what it was there. And we did the best we could with the gear we had.
Did you eat anything?
Oh yeah, we ate sea rations until they were gone, but the sea rations was very hard to eat. Now, being a rifleman or a machine gunner, you were always on line. You didn't light any fires. You didn't smoke at night. So you pretty well stayed away from it, and maybe you didn't have time. But we had sea rations, and they were all froze, so we'd chip them out and eat as we could, when we could. I remember we used to take and tie them we'd open them up and we'd tie them on our cartridge belt, because then we knew it would be there, and when we had time, we'd sit down there and take a couple of bites. But we didn't, there was no chow lines, no cooks and bakers, they weren't there.
Can you tell me just a little bit more, Dick, about the combat? I'm still not hearing maybe what I want to hear or need to hear, but you're there for several weeks, you've got your machine gun squad. I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm not getting a clear picture of combat. I mean, is it ongoing? Is it for sporadic? Is it they're rushing you? Guys are being shot? I mean, what's going on? Give me the combat. Like when they landed on Omaha Beach, it's very vivid. They landed, the Germans were shooting, the first few waves were wiped out. They eventually made their way up. They knocked out the machine gun nests. See, I'm not hearing that about Korea here. What am I missing here?
You may not hearing that from me, and the reason is because we all had our job to do. The riflemen, the BA airmen, the machine gunners. We knew where to go, what to do, and where to place our equipment. Didn't take a tech sergeant to tell us because of our training. Any one of us could have trained boots at Camp Pendleton. That's how well trained we were. And we made sure that we had our right main line of fires, we had our crossfires, and our riflemen knew where we were and we knew where they were. And nobody got behind us, and nobody got through us. And anybody got in front of us, we killed them. And sure, guys were killed, some guys were wounded. My buddy that was my best friend, and he got 3 Purple Hearts. I never got one. Now, you asked me about that. And why? I don't know. It's just one of the things. He's sitting there and he's got his elbow on the machine gun. A bullet comes up and hits him on the arm. And I'm sitting right there beside him. So you don't know, I don't know. But the number of killed, it was very difficult to say.
You said the number that were killed, you don't know. Right?
No. Machine gunners don't know.
Yeah.
But you kill a lot, as long as when they're coming at you. But you're not really interested in keeping score.
That's okay. Did combat change you as a person? I mean, did going through all that, coming out, living your life, did that make you a better person? I mean,
I think being in the Marine Corps made a better person of me. It provided the discipline. Well, I was only 18 when I went into combat, so I just turned, the day I hit Korea, I turned 19, so I'm still on this adventure that I signed up for, okay? And I'd been told we're going to be over there, get this job done, and go home. So, no, it was another adventure. I felt we were well trained for it, and that we were going to go in there and take care of business and go home. And I don't know that it changed me. How do I know? I was just 18, 19. At that time, I was having a lot of fun. I enjoyed the boat trip over there. I was looking forward to it because it's like anything. You take a team, a football team, and they train and they train, and finally they go on the field to see if they learned anything. Well, I felt we had learned as much as you can learn, so let's see if we got it down. And I felt we did. And I felt that the purpose of being there was worth it. I think maybe a few years later, as I got a little more mature and understood the political end of it, that I felt that that it did. And I say this to every Korean veteran that was ever there, that we stopped communists from Asia. To let China have their communism. South Korea, today I look at it and I see a most prosperous country in Asia. Along with Japan, of course, but we help them too. But South Korea is and I feel very responsible for helping them have a country. And I feel that it's a thing that I did in my life that I'm very proud of.
Did you feel a sense of duty to serve your country, and did you feel like you were fighting for your country over there?
I felt that we were fighting for my country and protecting our country from eventual communism. We had just finished getting rid of the Nazis in Japan, and here we have the communists after us. And I felt that that was a good job to do, and we should do that. And I still believe that.
Well, tell me about what does freedom mean to you and the price for freedom?
It means to me that the men and women today, during Vietnam, during Korea, during World War II, had a mission, and there's a certain breed in our country, and I'm not going to talk about whether or not they're college educated or they're not. I served and know a lot more, as many college people as I know that weren't college. They're all very good men, and they do it because they love this country. And they don't do it for personal gain, and they've been in foreign countries, and they know what it's like there, and they don't want it here. And that's the same with the boys in Iraq today. They are doing it because they feel a service to the country. Because I just believe in my heart that the thing that we're fighting there is even more severe than communism. It's worse. And they've already proved it to us that they could kill 3,000 people with one SWAT. More people there killed in New York City than was killed at Pearl Harbor in 1941. So yeah, I feel that everybody that enlists and joins any branch of the service today, it's for more than self-benefit. It's for fighting for their country.
What does the American flag mean and represent to you, Dick?
It means that when I stand and see the flag, and when they play the banner, Star-Spangled Banner, I am proud that I live in this country and would not want to live in any other country. And this country is worth fighting for, even though there are some people in this country who may not think so. They think it's better to, let's see what happens. Well, I don't think you see what happens. You take care of business, you take the offense and protect the country, and like it has been protected for 200 years.
Why do you think they call Korea the Forgotten War?
Well, several reasons. Number one, they got on ships and they shipped out, and the only people was down there was the wives of all the tech sergeants above and officers. At my time when we were in, PFCs didn't get married. They didn't have families. That's why everybody has wives that are 3 years younger than they are, or 4. So I believe that tell me the question again. I'm thinking.
Question on this
Yeah,
ask?
yeah,
What did I ask him?
Nobody knows what you asked me, but
No. It'll come back to me here in a minute. Well, yeah.
oh yeah, that's what you asked me.
I asked about freedom and I asked you about the Forgotten War.
Forgotten War. That's what we're going to be talking about. Okay, I think that it wasn't something that had a lot of publicity. It was my mom and dad have cutouts in the paper for it, but it was very little. It was MacArthur, they got see some things about the 1st Marine Division hits Incheon, But there was never anything. There wasn't a lot of, I could only remember one reporter, and that was Maggie Higgins. So there wasn't a lot of reporters going on. Most of the reporting was done by military personnel. So there wasn't a lot of publicity on it, because when I came back on rotation. I landed in San Francisco. I have a little card at home that says, "Well done, welcome back." And I got on a bus to go down to Point Magoo, where my brother was stationed. And the lady was on the bus, and she says, "Well, how did you get those ribbons? You're too young." I said, "Well, didn't you know we were at war?" "We are?" And I said, I didn't wear my uniform again while I was in the Marine Corps on shore leave, unless I was on duty. When I went ashore, I wore civilian clothes. There was nobody knew about it. There was no publicity, and we didn't say anything about it. Nobody was burning down our colleges like they were in Vietnam, and there wasn't that many dissidents because they didn't know about it. So that's why it's called the Forgotten War, I believe.
What should people remember about Korea?
Just take a look at South Korea and see what this country did for South Korea by staving out the communists. And look at the communists, what they're trying to do by threatening everybody with atomic bombs and the people starving to death and no food for them, and all in the military versus South Korea. Let me ask anybody in the world, where would they rather live, North Korea or South Korea? If it wasn't for the military and the decisions of our presidents and our country, South Korea would be Korea. So, no, I believe that we did a good job, and I think everybody that was there contributed to it and should be very proud that they did.
Can I have you give me a salute like I asked Dick to do? And when I tell you to?
Well, he taught, see. So if I make a mistake, you'll know it's his fault.
When I tell you, just give me a second here. Okay, right into the camera there, Dick. Great, thank you.
That's because I was seagoing for a year.